You can watch this video or you can try to fall asleep after start the video. Believe me, it will refresh your mood and help you to relax. Let's start the story. You know, sometimes, love sneaks up on you when you least expect it. That's what happened to me. I wasn't looking for anything. Hell, I didn't even know what I wanted, until I met him. It all started on an ordinary evening. The city lights were glowing, the air was crisp, and the sound of distant traffic mixed with the laughter of people walking past. I had just finished my shift at the cafe, wiping the last traces of coffee foam from my apron when my phone buzzed. Yo, there's a party at Lucas's place. You coming? Ryan, my best friend, always trying to drag me into something. I hesitated. Parties weren't really my thing, but Ryan wasn't the type to take no for an answer. Come on, man, you need to live a little. Who knows? Maybe tonight will change your life. I sighed. Yeah, right. Little did I know. He was absolutely right. The house was packed. People danced, music thumped, and the smell of alcohol and cologne filled the air. I was leaning against the wall, sipping on a drink, when my eyes landed on him. Tall, lean, ridiculously good-looking. His messy dark hair fell just above his sharp jawline, and his eyes. God, his eyes. A perfect storm of mischief and mystery. I should have looked away, but I didn't. And then, he caught me staring. His lips curved into a smirk, the kind that made my stomach tight. He walked toward me, slow and confident, like he had all the time in the world. You're either checking me out, or plotting my murder. Which one is it? My brain? Completely useless. My mouth? Even worse. Maybe both? He chuckled, leaning in just enough to send a shiver down my spine. Interesting. I like a little danger. Oh damn. Before I could say anything else, someone grabbed his shoulder. Aiden! There you are. Oh, wait, you met Nathan? Aiden. His name was Aiden. It suited him. Smooth, effortless, and just a little dangerous. Yeah, we were just talking. Aiden raised an eyebrow. Talking? That's one way to put it. Ryan, oblivious as always, patted my back. Good. You two should get along. Aiden's my cousin. Just moved back to the city. His cousin? This just got interesting. Aiden's gaze never left mine. Well, Nathan, I think you and I have some catching up to do. And just like that, my world tilted. I didn't know it then, but that night, that moment, was the beginning of something that would change me forever. You know that feeling when you touch something too hot, but instead of pulling away, you hold on just a little longer, enjoying the burn? That's what Aiden felt like. Dangerous, exciting, and way too tempting for my own good. And I was about to get burned. Well, Nathan, I think you and I have some catching up to do. Aiden had said, his voice smooth, confident, that damn smirk on his lips. It was doing things to me, things I wasn't ready to admit yet. Ryan, completely unaware of this silent war going on in my head, just laughed and slapped Aiden's back. You two have fun. I gotta find my girl before she murders me for leaving her alone too long. Then he was gone, swallowed up by the party crowd, and just like that, I was alone with Aiden. You don't talk much, do you? Aiden leaned against the wall beside me, his eyes studying me like I was some kind of puzzle he wanted to solve. I swallowed. I talk when there's something worth saying, he chuckled. So you don't think I'm worth talking to? I looked at him. Big mistake. His lips were slightly parted, his tongue brushing against the edge of his bottom lip like he was tasting the air between us. My throat went dry. I didn't say that. I muttered. His smirk deepened. So what do you think about me then? Oh, we were playing that game now. I could have played it safe, kept things casual, but there was something about him. Something that made me want to push back, to test the fire just a little. I think you like messing with people, I said. I think you enjoy watching them squirm. Aiden tilted his head, pretending to consider it. Maybe, but only with people who react in a way that's fun. His gaze flickered down to my lips for a fraction of a second before meeting my eyes again. And you, Nathan, look like you'd be a lot of fun. Jesus. I forced myself to exhale, gripping my cup a little tighter. Cocky much? He shrugged, confident. There's a difference. Debatable. Aiden laughed, shaking his head. I like you. You don't fall at my feet like most guys do. Oh, so he knew he had that effect on people. Of course he did. He wasn't just attractive. He was the kind of person who knew he was attractive. And yet, instead of feeling annoyed, I felt intrigued. Before I could respond, Aiden suddenly reached out and plucked the drink from my hand. Without breaking eye contact, he took a slow sip, his lips barely brushing the rim of the cup. A not so innocent gesture, my breath caught. You know there are like a million other drinks here, right? He licked a drop of liquid off his lower lip. Yeah, but this one's yours. I had to look away. Had to remind myself how to breathe. This was ridiculous. He was ridiculous. Do you always flirt this much with strangers? I asked, trying to sound unaffected. Aiden hummed, pretending to think. Only with ones that are interesting. Which means right now, Nathan, you're my favorite person in this whole room. I hated the way my heart stuttered at those words. I hated how much I wanted to hear him say them again. I should have walked away. I should have, but I didn't. Because as much as I hated to admit it, I liked the way he was looking at me. And that's when he leaned in, close enough that I could smell the faint scent of cologne on his skin. So, Nathan. His voice was low, intimate. What happens now? I swallowed hard. What do you mean? Aiden's lips curved into a wicked smile. I mean, we could stand here all night, dancing around whatever this is. His fingers brushed against mine, just for a second, a fleeting touch that sent a shiver up my spine. You could let yourself have a little fun for once. He was testing me, daring me, and I was dangerously close to giving in. But just before I could respond, the moment shattered. A loud crash sounded from across the room, followed by someone yelling, "Oh shit, Ryan, what the hell?" Both Aiden and I turned, watching as Ryan stood frozen in the middle of the room, an empty beer bottle rolling at his feet. In front of him, a guy was standing, soaked in beer, murder in his eyes. "Oh, for fuck's sake," I muttered. Ryan had officially ruined the moment. Aiden sighed dramatically. And here I thought things were getting interesting. I exhaled, forcing myself to step back, to regain control of my racing heartbeat. They were, and now they're not. Aiden smirked. "Oh, don't worry, Nathan. We're just getting started." And with that, he disappeared into the crowd, leaving me standing there, pulse pounding, head spinning, and one single thought running through my mind. I couldn't sleep that night. No matter how many times I turned over, no matter how many times I tried to push the thought of him out of my head, Aiden was there. In my mind, in my skin, in the air I was breathing, the way he smirked, the way his voice dipped just a little lower when he talked to me, the way his fingers had barely touched mine, but somehow it had sent fire through my veins. I was losing it. I barely knew this guy, and yet he had already messed up the careful balance I had in my life. And the worst part? I wanted him to. The next morning, I dragged myself out of bed, groggy and annoyed, only to find a text waiting for me. Unknown number, morning Nathan, did you dream about me? I blinked at my screen. What the hell? Before I could even think about how to respond, another message popped up. I am so screwed. Unknown number. Ryan gave me your number. Hope you don't mind. Or do you? I stared at my phone for a second before typing back. Me, I do mind. I wasn't even sure why I said that. Maybe I just wanted to see how he'd react. Aiden, being Aiden, reacted exactly how I expected. Aiden, ouch. You wound me. I rolled my eyes and tossed my phone on the bed. This was a mistake. Entertaining this, whatever this was. But my phone buzzed again. Aiden, so, what are you doing today? I sighed. Why was he so persistent? Why was I still smiling like an idiot at my screen? Before I could talk myself out of it, I replied, me work, then probably going home to sleep. Unlike you, I have responsibilities. Aiden's response was immediate. Aiden, bold of you to assume I don't have responsibilities. I'm deeply hurt. I shook my head. This guy. And then another text. Aiden, what time do you get off? I hesitated. I should have told him to back off. That I wasn't interested. That whatever this was, it wasn't going to happen. But instead I found myself typing. Me 6 p.m. Why? Aiden, because I'm picking you up. Me, excuse me? Aiden, you heard me. 6 p.m. Don't be late. I stared at the message, heart racing, fingers hovering over my phone. And then, before I could even process what I was doing, I sent the dumbest reply of my life. Me fine. Yeah, I was so screwed. Work was torture. I kept replaying our texts over and over in my head, trying to convince myself that this wasn't a date. It wasn't anything. It was just two people hanging out. Except, deep down, I knew that was a lie. By the time 6 p.m. rolled around, I was a mess. I stepped outside, gripping my bag tightly, heart hammering way too fast. And then I saw him, Aiden, leaning against his car, arms crossed, that same damn smirk on his lips. He looked effortlessly good, wearing a black jacket over a plain white tee, his hair slightly messy in a way that had to be intentional. His eyes flickered over me, slow, deliberate. Right on time. I like that. I rolled my eyes, hoping he couldn't see the way my pulse jumped at just the sound of his voice. So, what exactly is this? He opened the passenger door for me. Get in and find out. I hesitated. I really should have said no. But instead I stepped forward, slid into the seat, and watched as Aiden shut the door behind me. As he got into the driver's seat, he glanced over, eyes locking onto mine. Nervous? I scoffed. No, he chuckled. Liar. I turned away, staring out the window. Are you going to tell me where we're going? Or am I just supposed to hope you're not a serial killer? Aiden grinned, pulling out onto the road. Where's the fun in telling you? I sighed, but I couldn't help the small smile tugging at my lips. For the next 10 minutes, we drove in comfortable silence, the city lights flashing past, music playing softly from the speakers. And then, finally, we pulled up to an old abandoned parking lot near the edge of town. I frowned. This is where you kill me, isn't it? Aiden snorted. Relax. I don't murder cute guys on the first date. I choked. First of all, not a date. Second, did you just call me cute? Aiden smirked, getting out of the car. Oh, so you admit it's only the first date that's the problem? I groaned. You are impossible. He just laughed, motioning for me to follow him. Reluctantly, I got out and followed him across the lot. And that's when I saw it. An old, hidden drive-in theater, the kind that hadn't been used in years. Except tonight, a single screen was glowing, playing some old black and white movie I didn't recognize. I turned to Aiden, eyebrows raised. How? He shrugged. I have my ways. I stared at him. You rented out an entire drive-in for this? Aiden's smirk softened. It's kinda nice, right? No distractions. Just us. Something in my chest tightened. I should have made a joke, brushed it off, anything, but instead I just said the truth. Yeah, I murmured. It is. Aiden turned to look at me, and for the first time since I met him, he wasn't smirking. He was just looking at me, and I swear to God, in that moment, something shifted, something changed, and I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to go back. I don't know how long we stood there, just looking at each other. The glow from the movie screen flickered across Aiden's face, casting soft shadows along his sharp jawline. His lips were slightly parted like he wanted to say something but hadn't decided what yet. And me? I was frozen, not because I didn't know what was happening, but because I did. I felt the shift, the weight of the moment pressing against my chest, making it hard to breathe. And for the first time since I met Aiden, I was terrified. Not because I didn't want this, but because I wanted it too much. You're quiet again, Aiden finally said, his voice lower than before. I swallowed, forcing myself to snap out of whatever trance I'd fallen into. Maybe I just don't have anything to say, he hummed, tilting his head slightly. That's funny, because your eyes are saying a lot. My heartbeat slammed against my ribs. Aiden, tell me to stop. His voice was quiet but firm. A dare, a challenge. Tell me to stop. That's what he said. That's what he wanted me to do, but I didn't. I couldn't. Aiden took a slow step forward, closing the distance between us. I could smell the faint scent of his cologne. Something warm. Something dangerously addictive. His fingers brushed against my wrist, light as a whisper. Still nothing to say? I opened my mouth, then shut it again, because if I spoke, I knew my voice would betray me. Instead, I let out a shaky breath, and that was all Aiden needed. A slow smirk pulled at his lips, but this time, it wasn't playful. It wasn't cocky. It was something deeper, something real. You're really bad at pretending you don't want this, he murmured. I should have denied it. I should have laughed it off, made some stupid joke. walked away. But instead, I did the dumbest, bravest thing I've ever done. I stepped closer. His breath hitched for half a second, barely noticeable, but I caught it, and that's when I knew. This wasn't just me, this was us. A slow, reckless collision. Aiden lifted a hand, fingers grazing my jaw, his touch feather-light. I barely registered the sound of the movie playing in the background, the distant hum of the city beyond the abandoned lot. Nothing else existed in that moment except him. Nathan, he whispered. God, the way he said my name, like he had been waiting his whole life to say it like that. I should have pulled away, but I didn't. Instead, I leaned in, just enough for our noses to brush, just enough for the air between us to become unbearably tight. And then, Aiden suddenly pulled back, exhaling sharply. I blinked, my heart slamming against my ribs. What? He let out a short, breathless laugh, running a hand through his hair. Damn, my stomach twisted. Damn, what? His gaze flickered over me, something unreadable in his expression. If I kiss you now, I don't think I'll be able to stop. His voice was rough, laced with something dangerous, something that sent a thrill through me. I swallowed hard. Then don't. Aiden sucked in a sharp breath, like he hadn't expected me to say that, like he hadn't expected me to want this just as much as he did. A slow, knowing smile crept onto his lips. You're playing with fire, Nathan. I exhaled shakily. Maybe I want to get burned. Silence. Thick, heavy, electric. And then, Aiden closed the distance between us. The second his lips touched mine, my mind blacked out. Everything vanished. The movie, the night, the world. There was only Aiden, his hands tangled in my hair. His mouth moving against mine with slow, unbearable intent. Like he was memorizing me, like he had waited for this just as long as I had. I grabbed onto his jacket, pulling him closer, needing more. A soft sound escaped him, somewhere between a sigh and a groan. And something about that made my entire body burn. God, I was so screwed. And then, just as suddenly as it started, Aiden pulled back. His forehead pressed against mine, his breathing ragged. Fuck, he whispered, almost to himself. My heart was still racing, my skin still tingling from where he had touched me. But when I looked up at him, his expression had shifted. There was something there, something hesitant, something almost vulnerable, like he hadn't expected this to feel so real, like it scared him just as much as it scared me. Aiden, I started, but he shook his head, a small smile playing on his lips. You're dangerous, Nathan, he murmured. I let out a breathless laugh. I think that's supposed to be my line. He smirked, but it didn't quite reach his eyes, and for the first time, I wondered if Aiden was just as afraid of this as I was. If he was just as terrified of falling, because that's what this was. That's what we were doing, falling. And there was no going back now. The drive home was silent, not the comfortable kind, not the peaceful kind, the kind that felt like an unanswered question. Aiden had barely spoken since he kissed me, since I kissed him back. And the worst part? I didn't know if that was a good thing or a bad thing. I stole a glance at him, his hands gripping the steering wheel a little too tight, his jaw clenched like he was fighting something. I should have said something, but I didn't know what, so instead I sat there, replaying that moment over and over in my head. The way he had looked at me before it happened, the way his lips had felt against mine, the way my entire body had responded like I'd been waiting for that moment my whole damn life. And now he wouldn't even look at me. And now he wouldn't even look at me. The tension in the air was suffocating. I licked my lips. So, are we just gonna pretend that didn't happen? Aiden exhaled through his nose. Did I say that? I frowned. No, but then don't assume. His voice was sharp, tighter than before. I felt something inside me twist. Okay, I muttered. Noted. He sighed, rubbing a hand over his face. I didn't mean it like that. Sure you did. Nathan. No, really, it's fine. I forced a laugh, crossing my arms. You kissed me. Big deal. No need to act like the world is ending. Aiden's grip on the wheel tightened. I should have just shut up. Let it go. But I didn't. because I needed to know. Was it a mistake? I asked quietly. His jaw tensed. Seconds passed, each one heavier than the last. And then, "No," Aiden murmured. My breath caught. He finally turned to look at me, his expression unreadable. "It wasn't a mistake," he said again, softer this time. But, God, I hated that word. But what? I asked. He hesitated. "I don't do this, Nathan," I frowned. "Do what?" "This." He gestured vaguely between us. "Whatever this is." I swallowed hard. "So what are you saying?" "You don't want, I do want." He cut in, voice low, almost pained. "That's the problem." I stared at him, my heart hammering. He wanted this. He wanted me. So then, why did it sound like a bad thing? "Aiden." He shook his head. I can't." A sharp exhale. Then, finally, "You don't know me, Nathan." My stomach twisted. "I know enough." He let out a humorless laugh. "No, you don't. You think I'm some cocky flirt who likes messing with you. But there's a lot more to me than that, and I don't think you'd like all of it." I studied his face, the way his expression flickered, like he was debating how much to let me see, and suddenly I understood. This wasn't about the kiss. It wasn't about me. It was about him, about whatever he was afraid of. And I had two choices. I could back off, let him pretend none of this mattered, walk away before either of us got too deep, or I could take a risk. I could push. I could show him that whatever he was running from, I wasn't scared. I took a slow breath. "You don't get to decide that for me," I said softly. Aiden's eyes flicked to mine. I held his gaze steady. "If there's more to you, let me see it. If there are things I might not like, let me decide that for myself." Silence, tension so thick I could barely breathe. Then, finally, a quiet, shaky chuckle. "You really don't know what you're asking for," Aiden murmured. "Maybe not," I admitted, "but I know I'm not afraid." His lips parted slightly, like he was about to say something, but then he shook his head, like he couldn't, like he wasn't ready. The car slowed as we pulled up to my place. Aiden put it in park but didn't look at me. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "So what happens now?" A long pause. Then, "I don't know," he admitted. Something in my chest ached at the honesty in his voice. I nodded slowly, hand on the door handle. "Well, when you figure it out, let me know." And with that, I stepped out, shutting the door behind me. I barely made it 2 steps before I heard his window roll down. "Nathan." I turned. Aiden's face was shadowed in the dim streetlight, but his eyes, they were burning. He hesitated, like he was fighting himself, and then, in a voice so soft I barely caught it, "I don't want to hurt you." I felt something twist inside me, and before I could even think about what it meant, I found myself saying, "Then don't." Another beat of silence. Then Aiden gave me a small, almost defeated smile. "I'll see you, Nathan." And just like that, he drove off, leaving me standing there, heart pounding, mind spinning, because I knew, without a doubt, this wasn't over, not even close. The next few days were strange. Aiden and I didn't talk, not in a cold shoulder kind of way, not in an angry silence kind of way, more like hesitation, like we were both waiting for the other to make the first move. I caught him looking at me in class once, just a quick glance before he looked away like nothing had happened. And maybe I imagined it, but his fingers, the ones that had been tangled in my hair, gripping my shirt, tracing my jaw, twitched slightly against the edge of his desk, like he remembered too, like he felt it too. But still, neither of us said anything, until Friday night. I had just gotten out of the shower, towels still draped around my neck, when my phone buzzed. "Aiden, you home?" I frowned. "Me, yeah? Why?" "Aiden, I'm outside." My heart stopped. I barely threw on a hoodie before heading for the door, and sure enough, there he was, leaning against his car, hands shoved into his pockets, looking like he had spent an hour trying to decide whether or not to show up. I stepped outside, crossing my arms. "Didn't think I'd be seeing you tonight." Aiden exhaled through his nose, shaking his head. "I shouldn't be here, but you are." He swallowed, his gaze flicking to mine, and suddenly, the air changed. There was something different in the way he was looking at me, something desperate, something dangerous. I tried to stay away, he muttered. I frowned. Why? Because this isn't a good idea. Then why are you here, Aiden? His jaw tensed. For a moment, I thought he wasn't going to answer, but then, in a voice so quiet I barely caught it. Because I can't help it. My breath hitched. Aiden let out a humorless laugh, running a hand through his hair. You don't get it, Nathan. I'm not good at this. I don't do relationships. I don't do feelings. I don't let people get close. And you, he stopped, swallowed hard. You're making it really fucking hard to keep my distance. My heart pounded. I took a slow step forward. Then don't. This was messy, hungry, like he had spent days thinking about this moment, trying to fight it, and now he was done holding back. I groaned into his mouth, gripping his hoodie, pulling him even closer. Aiden cursed under his breath, his hands sliding up my sides, his touch everywhere and not enough all at once. You drive me insane, he muttered against my lips. Good, I whispered, means we're even. A breathless chuckle. God, you're impossible, I smirked. And yet here you are. Aiden let out a frustrated, almost pained groan before he kissed me again. Harder this time, deeper, like he was losing himself in me. And I let him. I let him take what he needed. I let myself fall. But then, just as suddenly, he pulled back. His breathing was ragged. His fingers still curled in the fabric of my hoodie, and in his eyes a war. Aiden wanted this, but something was stopping him. I reached for him, but he took a shaky step back. I should go, he muttered. My stomach twisted. Aiden, I have to go, Nathan. And before I could stop him, before I could say anything that might make him stay, he turned around and disappeared into the night, leaving me standing there, breathless, heart aching, mind spinning, and knowing, without a doubt, this wasn't just attraction, it wasn't just desire, it was so much more, and Aiden was terrified of it. I didn't hear from Aiden for 2 days, not a single text, not a single call, nothing, and maybe I should have expected that, maybe I should have prepared for it, but it still hurt, because after everything, the way he kissed me, the way he needed me, I thought he'd finally stop running. I was wrong, but here's the thing about Aiden. He can't stay away for long. So when I opened my door Sunday night and saw him standing there, soaking wet from the rain, eyes wild like he had just made the biggest decision of his life, I wasn't surprised. I wasn't shocked, because I knew he'd come back. His breathing was ragged, like he had been running. Maybe he had. I crossed my arms. Took you long enough. A breathless, shaky chuckle. Yeah, more silence. The air crackled between us. Then, finally, I tried to stay away, he admitted. I nodded. I noticed. His jaw clenched. But I can't. Something inside me tightened. Aiden exhaled sharply, running a hand through his wet hair. I don't know how to do this, Nathan. I don't know how to be what you need me to be. My chest ached. You don't have to know, I said softly. You just have to stop fighting it. His gaze snapped to mine, and for the first time, I saw it. The fear, not of me, not of this, but of himself. Aiden was scared of feeling this much, of falling too hard, but I wasn't scared, and I needed him to know that. I took a step closer. You kissed me. He didn't move. You wanted me. Another step. Still, he didn't move. You still want me. His breath hitched. And I want you, Aiden. I reached for him, my fingers brushing against his wrist. So stop. Before I could finish, Aiden grabbed me. His hands curled into my hoodie, pulling me against him. And then, his lips crashed into mine. This kiss was different. Not just hunger, not just want. It was desperation. It was relief. Like he had finally given in. Like he had finally let go. I melted into him, my fingers gripping his jacket, pulling him even closer. Aiden groaned into my mouth, one hand sliding up my back, the other tangling in my hair. His touch burned. But this time, he wasn't going to run. I pulled back slightly, breathless. No more running? His forehead pressed against mine, his breathing ragged. No more running, he whispered, and just like that, the chase was over. To be continued, forever. The end. The build-up, the longing, the desperation. It all explodes into a kiss that means everything.